Join us as we explore the transformative journey of Dr. Tamara Gray, a passionate advocate for women's rights and spirituality, who embraced Islam and dedicated her life to education and empowerment. This is the story of Dr. Tamara Gray, a woman whose journey towards Islam began with deep spiritual reflection. Raised in Minnesota, she was born in 1966 and embraced Islam in 1985. Even from a young age, Dr. Gray had a strong connection to her Christian faith, often being the most religious person in her family. Her life revolved around her belief in God, and she participated in various religious activities, such as Christian youth groups and mission trips.
I was actually the most religious in my family. So even as a child, as a Christian, I was the one who was involved. I went to camp, I went to youth group, I did little mission trips. So I was a very Christian, religious person. I believe very strongly in God and cared a lot about my spiritual self. I think that's the right way to say it.
However, her firm Christian beliefs began to waver during her teenage years. At the age of 17, Dr. Gray became deeply troubled by the issues women faced in society, particularly concerning women's rights and gender inequality. She was overwhelmed by the suffering of women in the workplace and the overall injustices they experienced.
And I was overwhelmed by them. I was suddenly aware of how much women are suffering in the world, in the United States, in the workplace, and all. And a lot of things that people like to call feminist issues, but they are really women's issues. They're real pain that women were going through. And at 17, I was really overwhelmed by it, just disturbed by it.
This awakening coincided with a struggle she had with her faith. She found it difficult to reconcile her belief in a male God, as represented in Christianity, with her growing concerns about gender equality.
So what with that happening, I was struggling with the idea that God was male. Of course, if you were to speak to Christians today, they might tell you, no, God isn't male. But representation of God in Christianity was male. The Father and the Son, they're male. And Jesus himself, beloved Isa alayhi salam, Jesus himself in the Christian church is represented by, astaghfirullah, but as represented as the Son of God, is male. And you are asked as a Christian to worship him.
As she wrestled with these internal conflicts, Dr. Gray decided to explore other religions, but initially Islam wasn't part of her search. Her perception of Islam at the time was minimal, and she admits to having no real knowledge of it.
I took the class, and after 3 weeks of being in the class, I could no longer be Christian. So I left Christianity, and then I embarked on the search for a religion that would fulfill my belief, which was I believed very strongly that there was a God. I had very little knowledge of Islam, like almost zero. Is that I was searching for a religion and looking at everything except for Islam. I had left Christianity in early September. By the end of December, I'm like, what's going on? I haven't found a religion yet.
It wasn't until a casual conversation with a Muslim student that she began to think differently.
I didn't know he was Muslim, but I was talking to him, and I asked him, what religion are you? And he said, I'm a Muslim. And I was really taken aback because he seemed so normal. Like, he seemed like a normal person. I couldn't believe that he was a Muslim.
This student mentioned how his sister had started wearing hijab, which sparked Dr. Gray's interest in how the hijab could be a tool to help women avoid sexual harassment, especially in the workplace. She began to see Islam in a new light, one that aligned with her concerns about women's rights.
I heard him talk about his sister who had put on hijab. As a result of that conversation, I became very interested in the idea of hijab as something that would be a tool that women could use in order to avoid sexual harassment in the workplace. I'm 18 years old. I'm involved in the feminist movement at the time. I'm really interested in, I'm disturbed by how the struggle of women in the workplace and how at that time in the world, we were just beginning to hear about all the sexual harassment that women were dealing with. It was very overwhelming. And so I thought, oh gosh, this hijab thing, like, that's really a good idea.
Dr. Gray's exploration of Islam deepened when she picked up a Quran. She asked God to guide her to what she needed to read, and the Quran opened to verses that emphasized the equality of men and women. This moment was a turning point for her. She realized that Islam held the values she had been searching for, values of equity, justice, and respect for women. She was so moved by this discovery that she prayed, asking God for guidance. When she finished the prayer, she knew she had found her faith. From that moment on, she considered herself a Muslim.
He gave me, every possible dua you could make in the prayer reading and this enormous piece of paper. Okay, thank you very much. I take it. I go back to my room. I haven't read the Mus'haf yet. I haven't read the Quran yet. Well, I sit down with the Quran and I say, oh God, let it open to what you want me to read. So it opens up to the verse in Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْقَانِتِينَ وَالْقَانِتَاتِ to the end of the verse. And I'm stunned. I can't believe it. And it's a joke. It's a joke that I tell people now. I think it's so funny because I'm sitting there in my state of being stunned and overwhelmed. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, Islam has equity between men and women in the faith. So I got up, I took that prayer that the boy gave me, and I took that prayer and I held it in my hand and I did all the movements. And in the last sujood, I said, oh God, if this Quran, these are your words, then I'm a Muslim.
Dr. Gray's early experiences with Islam were challenging, especially as she navigated a new faith without the aid of modern conveniences like the internet, which didn't exist at the time. She learned about Islamic practices through personal connection, like the Malaysian sisters she lived with, who introduced her to the importance of prayer, including the night prayer, tahajjud. For Dr. Gray, tahajjud became a cornerstone of her spiritual life, helping her grow in faith and stay grounded in her religious practices.
I met some Malaysian sisters on campus and they invited me to live with them. Yay! So I moved in with them, and the first night we prayed Isha. This was new for me still. Like, it was still just a couple of months. Still Salat Isha on time. It was new for me. So we prayed Isha, and as we finished, I immediately took off my prayer clothes, and she turned to me and she said, aren't you going to pray witr? I had never heard of witr. I had no idea what she was talking about. What is witr? I don't know. But I didn't know what to say because I was like, I guess my 18-year-old self did not want to look down. So I just went quiet. And then she said, oh, you prayed after tahajjud. I was like, what is tahajjud? I had no idea what either one of these things are. But I said, yeah, that's right. I prayed after tahajjud. And so she said, shall I wake you? And I said, yeah, wake me. Of course, I don't know what is going on. I don't know what is going on. I frantically start looking in my books. So I'm just looking, trying to figure out what these things are. And then, she woke me up for tahajjud. And I started praying tahajjud. I would say that tahajjud is the keystone helmet. When you have tahajjud, you're not going to miss your photo first. When you have tahajjud, it is a keystone helmet for a spiritual life. And I always say it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 2 rak'ahs before Fajr.
What stood out most to Dr. Gray about Islam was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, treatment of women. She admired how he interacted with women as full, independent human beings, giving them a place in society that had been difficult to find elsewhere. This respect for women was what drew her to Islam and continues to inspire her today.
I would ask him how I'm doing, I guess. I would ask for him to speak to me as though I were a Sahabiya and to call upon me to live that life. I would ask him to correct the mistakes I'm making, to align me with their lives, and then I would ask to pray with him. I'd really want to pray with him as my imam.
In her journey, Dr. Gray found the support of strong female mentors and teachers, which was crucial to her spiritual development. She believes in the importance of women learning from and supporting each other, a tradition that has been part of Islam's history from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Today, Dr. Gray continues to share her story and inspire others through her work, showing how Islam provides answers not only for individual spiritual growth, but also for societal challenges. Her journey serves as a reminder that faith, when rooted in compassion and justice, can bring profound personal transformation.